Tyres are, unfortunately, one of the most commonly overlooked parts of any vehicle. And yet they're also one of the most essential. They ensure that your vehicle stays connected to the road. They ensure that you don't slip and slide about, and if you're on two wheels, can be the difference between you staying upright and not. And yet automakers, when they're building new vehicles at factories, just as motorcycle manufacturers do, tend to pick the tyre that is not only reasonably adequate for the needs of said vehicle, but also effectively priced. And automakers especially end up entering into all kinds of deals with parts suppliers to ensure that the tyres that are put on their vehicles from the factory, while maybe not the best possible tyres for that vehicle, are adequate enough. And most of us drive on those factory spec tyres for the first 20, 30,000 miles before they wear down and require replacement. And if you live somewhere where you get quite a lot of bad winter weather, lots of snow, lots of ice, you probably have a winter set of tyres ready to go that you swap out in September, October, November time, before then swapping back to the all-season tyres, or perhaps the tyres that came with your vehicle when the spring and summer rolls around. But there are many, many other choices out there. Now, this is Ortega's, my 2023 F-150 Lightning, and it came from the factory with some okay-ish all-season tyres. They were designed to be a bit of an all-rounder, not necessarily the most efficient, certainly not as good as the original F-150 Lightning tyres that I had, which were a different brand and held the ground much, much better. But as you know, we here at the channel are fans of winter tyres, and so round about October, November last year, I paid out of my own pocket to put Nokian Hakkapeliitta winter tyres on this truck. And then for the spring and summer, well, there's been some questions running around lately from people asking us if off-road tyres dramatically impact your EV range, and whether you should bother putting off-road tyres on a car that is capable of going off-road. Now, the F-150 Lightning is a vehicle that is capable, definitely capable when it comes to off-road driving. It's got independent rear suspension, unlike the gasoline version, which still uses leaf springs. It's got all-wheel drive, thanks to one electric motor per axle. And it's got decent traction control. It can go off-road. I wouldn't necessarily want to take it on a really long off-road trail in Colorado like I did with the Rivian R1T that one time, but generally it's capable enough. I mean, not with this F-150, but its predecessor, I towed a tiny house on a farm in mud, and everything worked as it should. But I know many of you like the look of off-road tyres, and many of you genuinely live somewhere where you need to have off-road tyres on your vehicle because there's lots of gravel trails, or maybe you have a hobby that involves you disappearing off into the wilderness for a couple of days before coming back to civilization. Which is why we reached out to Nokian and asked it to send us these. These are Nokian Outpost nAT tyres. They're off-road capable tyres, and today I'm going to introduce you to this long-term review. What's it like driving off-road capable tyres on an EV that spends some of its time on the road? But as you may see from the tailgate of this truck, I live somewhere where we have plenty of gravel trails. Does it improve grip on those gravel trails? What's it like on mud? Can I drive it on my garden? And what is the impact on range? Because that is the really important thing. Before I get into this video, I do want to acknowledge the obvious, namely that I am not where I started this video, and that's because shortly after we filmed the introduction, the heavens opened and it started raining. We have been busy for the last couple of days, and I am on my way back from shooting B-roll for a car review that's coming very shortly. And as regulars to the channel will know, we use the F-150 Lightning as our crew truck. And when we're doing rolling shots or chase shots, we use this truck as the camera rig truck, so it puts all the camera gear on it. So it made sense for me to film the second half of this video on the way back from that. As I noted at the start of this video, one of the reasons we agreed to review these Nokian Outpost nAT tyres is because lots of people have asked us what the impact of off-road capable tyres is on EV range. We've actually done 701 miles. I know that because I'm now looking at the trip meter, which I reset after I put the new tyres on, and I don't think anybody has reset it. So since these new tyres went on, we made a trip up to Seattle and back, and the truck has done some other regional trips associated with the channel. And so after about 700 miles, we've worn off kind of that new tyre sheen that very often makes the tyres a little unpredictable and not very nice to drive on, whether it's a motorbike, whether it's a car. Those first couple of 100 miles always feel a bit meh until the tyre has kind of worn itself in and you've got rid of that factory new finish. And in that time, we've had a mixture of different conditions. We've had rain, we've had some cold snaps. This morning it was hovering around about freezing, and we've also had lovely dry warmer weather. Right now it is about 19 degrees Celsius, so not too hot, not too cold, which is kind of mid to upper 60s Fahrenheit. You can hear on dry road at 55 miles an hour that there is a little bit more tyre noise than we got from either of the stock tyres that came with our F-150 Lightnings, or indeed the winter tyres, the Nokian Hakapalitas, which tended to be a little bit louder than the stock all-season tyres, but certainly a lot quieter than what we've got right now. And I can definitely confirm from driving this around my neighbourhood that at speeds under about 40 miles an hour, you don't notice it all that much. It's not so loud as to be unpleasant, but I feel it would be wrong for me to pretend that these tyres are quiet, because they're definitely not. The F-150 Lightning is pretty well insulated from a sound perspective. On other EVs, it might be less obvious. On some, it might be really obvious, and it really depends on how much sound insulation your particular EV has. I will say that everyday handling doesn't seem to be impacted yet, and I have noticed that as long as I'm driving the truck within its limits, there's really not a huge differentiation between handling. It's only when you're asking the truck to put all of its power down, or when you're asking it to do something in a hurry, that you notice maybe the handling on these all-terrain tyres are not as good as they would be on the stock Ford selected tyres that come with the F-150 Lightning. And depending on which year you have, depends on which tyres you get. There's been several different options. There's been a kind of an all-terrain light kind of version, and then there's been kind of a more road-oriented one. I've also found that this tyre is a little lacking. So if you are someone who likes to bury your right foot into the carpet and your EV has a lot of power, a lot of torque, remember the F-150 Lightning is 700 plus pound-feet of torque, 500 horsepower or something like that. and it is a beast. And yesterday, when I was driving this truck, after having dropped off our camera person to pick up the press car that we've been filming with, there was a fire truck that needed me to get out of the way at an intersection. And I was waiting at the lights, and just as the lights turned, the fire truck, which was a couple of vehicles back, made itself felt, and we all needed to get out of the way as quickly as possible. Now, I buried my foot to the floor, as I have done plenty of times in the past, to quickly get through the intersection so they could get on their way and I didn't hold them up. But in doing so, with these Nokian Outpost nATs, there was a little bit of sideways action because the tires didn't have quite as much grip under that extreme situation. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that, yes, I lost a bit of traction, and I think it's because of the tread pattern. Again, big knobbly tires, they're not going to be as capable, I think, of putting power down in an absolute emergency. Now's a good example of the noise. So I was below 40 miles an hour and there wasn't a lot of noise. I'm now at 50, and you can just hear that noise in the background, faintly making that noise. And I think on certain surfaces, you would notice it. If you have a lot of concrete roads, so if you live out east, I think you probably are going to notice a lot of noise from these tires on concrete as opposed to asphalt or blacktop or whatever you want to call it. On quieter roads, I don't think it's going to bug you, but on these louder roads that they tend to have out east, I think it will irk you after a while, depending on how loud you like your radio, that is. But to be fair, it's not as loud as to be unpleasant. You can still have a normal conversation at normal volumes, and if you travel with the radio on, as most people do, or music, or a podcast, or an audiobook, you are probably going to be just fine. You're probably going to live with it. Now, the next thing I probably should talk about here is efficiency. What has the efficiency been like thus far, and what has my efficiency been like on previous tires? In absolutely perfect conditions with my F-150 Lightning in the summer on, very efficient tires on this truck with the same wheels. These are the 20-inch wheels, not the 22 inches that come with the Platinum. So the Lariats come with a 20-inch wheel. I can get anywhere between 2.4 and 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour if I drive it like a saint. If I drive it in a normal truck mode, so I make good progress, I'm not holding anybody up, I'm not really driving for efficiency, I average somewhere between 2 and 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour in the summer. And in the winter time, I normally see somewhere between 1.8 and 2.2, 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, that's partly because we don't make a lot of long distance trips in the winter. That's partly because the trips we make, we tend to precondition the cab before we leave. So there's not a huge amount of losses from that perspective. And also, the Nokian Hakkapeliitta winter tires that we have on this truck in the winter normally are really designed for EV efficiency. And so you don't see a massive impact. Now, granted, I've been driving this on these tires for about 700 miles. So 711 is what we're now sitting at. And according to my odometer, I am averaging 2 miles per kilowatt hour, which honestly, I'm surprised. I expected that we would get closer to 1.8, 1.9. So the fact that we've got 2 miles per kilowatt hour on these tires right now tells me that they're not as bad as I thought they were going to be, and give me some hope that as the tyres bed in, as we get rid of any kind of reactionary differences that come from driving on these tyres, because it does make you feel a little bit different on the road, and I'll come to that in a second, that the same kind of levels of efficiency are possible if you are mindful. So let's talk about these particular tyres. So the Outpost nATs are Nokian's all-weather tyre. So that means they've got the 3-peak snowflake symbol. It means they've been designed to legally be driven in places where they normally say traction tyres or chains. So these do classify as traction tyres. Because they're so chunky, because they have such deep tread, they are going to get a mouthful of snow in cold weather. But they also have the ability to go off-road in the summer and of course in the winter. They've got the aramid sidewalls that are reinforced, which is designed to prevent sidewall punctures that you very often get if you take a vehicle off-road. I have noticed they are a little firmer and there's less body roll than the stock tyres that came with this truck, but maybe a little bit more body roll than the original F-150 Lightning, which came with general grabbers, which were actually really good. This set of tyres, though, have already impressed me with their capabilities, and while I haven't done a huge amount of off-road driving in them yet, I have taken it on unpaved, unimproved roads near me with gravel, and the truck has been just fine. Again, just like I said earlier, when you accelerate, you try to put a lot of power down with these. You have to be smooth with your power delivery, otherwise you will go sideways, and that is true on gravel also. But if you are driving on gravel, one would hope that you wouldn't be trying to absolutely bury your right foot. That would be catastrophic in any vehicle. So you have to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, any amount of power delivery, if you try and deliver it all in one go and the conditions are not great, it doesn't matter what shoes you've got on, you're still going to go sideways. In terms of feedback for me, I do feel that there's a little less feedback than there was with the stock tyres in terms of steering feel, and that makes sense because the tyres are a bit chunkier and they're a bit heavier and there's a little bit more mass in there. But I still know where my front wheels are. I still know where the truck is, and interestingly, I don't feel the bumps quite as much as I did on other tyres with this truck. So it just handled that really nicely. So despite that sidewall being quite strong, there is still some give in the tyre. I'm afraid I have forgotten the price of these tyres, but I'm going to get our DP to put them up on screen right now. But as you can see, they're not exactly cheap. And I mean, Nokian is considered something of a premium tyre brand. It's not making kind of budget-oriented tyres, but it does put a lot of research and development into its tyres, and all of its tyres are built, well, pretty much all of its tyres are built with EVs in mind. And so this is one of the few off-road capable, all-terrain, all-weather tyres on the market that has been designed from the ground up to accommodate EVs. And one of the important things about that is, because EVs have big battery packs, especially if they're off-road capable ones like big pickup trucks or SUVs, they're gonna have a pretty heavy gross vehicle weight, and these tyres are built with that in mind. So they are reinforced to carry that extra weight, which means that you're not going to get into a situation, as you might with certain tyre manufacturers, where you go to put it on your vehicle and the tyre shop says, yeah, I'm not allowed to install this on the vehicle because it's overrating the tyre if we do that. I've encountered that a couple of times with other tyres on other vehicles, and in fact, when we were looking for the winter tyres to put on this, the winter tyres had to be a heavier rating than you would normally get for that size, because we needed that extra weight load capability that that higher load rating. Otherwise, the tyres wouldn't have been road legal, and if anything would have happened, our insurance company would have turned around and gone, yeah, you had the wrong tyres in, didn't you? So I can't really tell you much more at this point, but what I can do is give you a bit of an anecdote about this vehicle with these tyres on and how it handles my garden. No, it doesn't do gardening or anything, but my usual parking place for this truck is on a piece of hard standing that is adjacent to our driveway. We park the truck there, A, because it fits, and B, because it gives us the access to the Ford home integration system, and it is within the required distance for the Bluetooth connection between the truck and the home integration system. So if the power goes off, the truck can power on the house and everything works. Sometimes I have to back the truck adjacent to the chicken coop, which is something that we do if we have extra visitors who need to charge. We have an inordinate number of charging stations at the house, but most of them are unfortunately attached to the garage. So we have to arrange the cars in a way that means you can get 4 or 5 cars in that space. And when I do that, when I had the original stock tyres and the winter tyres, the back end of the truck points downhill, and I live on a hill. My garden slopes downhill very dramatically, very quickly. And while the truck would quite happily, move into that space, getting out of that space was always a bit of a pain. I would have to put the truck into 4-wheel drive mode. I'd have to lock the diffs up, and I'd have to drive in a very specific way to avoid the truck which didn't have any weight on its front, because all of the weight was pointing down the hill, scrabbling its tyres and not wanting to get up onto the driveway. With these tyres on, that is no longer a problem, and indeed I can actually back into the driveway and back into my garden and down the hill, or go nose first down the hill and get then back up it without losing traction. Now, that is a major improvement for me, because it means I can take things for the garden actually to where I need to put them in the garden, rather than wheelbarrowing it through the garden. But it gives me more traction in the garden, and it's a shame that we have a relative who used to live on a farm with a tiny house, and I have towed that tiny house with my previous F-150 Lightning, and on those original stock tyres it grabbled and it had issues. I would love to replicate that again with these off-road tyres, because I think that wouldn't be a problem anymore. Unfortunately, the tiny house has moved and is now in town, so that's not an option anymore. But as always with tyre reviews, this is going to be an ongoing process. We'll keep you updated. The too long didn't read right now is, the knobblies do lose you a little bit of range. There is a little bit of an impact, but so far I think the benefits outweigh that for my application, which is I very often do have to take this off-road, either on a farm or on local trails near my house, and having that extra flexibility is very important. Also, handling inclement weather with these tyres I think is going to be very good. I know some of you in our Discord chat room have these. I know one of our contributors to the channel, Peter, has these on a Rivian and says they're really, really good, and he really likes them. So I can't wait to put a few thousand miles on these and then let you know what I really think. So other than the noise, which I am noise sensitive, but that's what radios are for, right? So tell me what tyres you've got on your EV, whether you have off-road capable tyres. Have you tried the Nokian Outpost nATs? Let me know in the down below, and I'll be back soon. Thanks for joining us today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them in our Discord chat room, on our Patreon page down below, or you can reach out to us using Mastodon or Blue Sky. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They're part of the massive community of supporters who make this channel possible, helping us through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and ensuring we remain 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. We have options available across a wide range of different price points, starting from $1.50 US a month. A massive welcome to our newest supporters: Andrew Dijak, Alex Flinner, Mark Chopping, Squire, James Higgins Thomas, Crispy Noges, Charles Noun, B. Henke, DVDD, Maria van der Linden, Kay Firth, Scott Churchill, Nathan Okawa, Corporal Dwayne Hicks, T2 Roman, Michael Schaefer, Alon M, Peterson, Albert Beidou, Omar A. Kale, Robert Gee, and Nick. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your moment of fame, and now you can even gift membership to someone else. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have an old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at for the time being, address also linked below. You'll also find links to our swag store, and if you are someone who has to shop on Amazon, please consider using our affiliate link so we get the commission, not Jeff Bezos. So we can continue to focus on making our content even better and reduce creator burnout, we're doing a different set of release days this year and plan dropping new content every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday on our main channel, plus something special on Sunday over on TE Take 2. And if you want more, the mighty algorithm that hates us thinks you should be watching this video, but we think this one is well worth watching too. Be awesome, be kind, be intentional, and don't forget to resist. Keep evolving!